Have you ever thought about how a small, wandering group of people in Anatolia grew into one of the most powerful powers in history? The rise of the Ottoman Empire is full of brave victories, smart partnerships, and legendary leaders like Osman I and Suleiman the Magnificent. What, though, really drove their endless growth? How did this kingdom change the world we live in now? One of the most amazing success stories in world history is the rise of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire went from being a small, weak principality on the edges of the Byzantine Empire to one of the strongest in the world over the course of several hundred years. It controlled most of southeastern Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. The story of how a group of nomadic Turkish people became a world giant is one of military genius, visionary leadership, and smart diplomacy. How the Ottoman Empire began? Turkey today is in Anatolia, which is where the Ottoman Empire got its start in the early 1400s. The area was a mix of different cultures and political groups, as the last bits of the Byzantine Empire fought to keep control in different Turkish kingdoms, or beyliks, fought for power. It was during this time of chaos that the Ottoman rule began. The empire's father, Osman I, was the leader of a small Turkish principality in northwest Anatolia, close to the border with Byzantium. This is where the name Ottoman comes from. Born around 1258, Osman received a fairly small beylik, but he was a great leader and knew a lot about war. He took advantage of the fact that the Byzantine Empire was weak and falling apart at the time to start raiding and taking over Byzantine-held lands to make his empire bigger. Osman's military success was helped by the fact that more and more Turks and other Muslim troops joined his cause. They were called Ghazis, and they felt it was their religious duty to fight battle against the Christian Byzantine Empire and spread Islamic rule. In its early years, the Ghazi spirit would be a major force behind the Ottoman Empire's growth. Growth under Orhan and the takeover of Bursa. When Osman died around 1326, his son Orhan took over as ruler of the Ottoman Principality. It turned out that Orhan was an even better leader than his father. It was during his rule that the Ottomans went from being a regional power to a strong military and political force. One of Orhan's most important accomplishments was taking over Bursa in 1326. It was the first big Ottoman capital and set the stage for future territorial growth. The Ottomans' capture of Bursa was both a military and a symbolic win because it showed they could take a major Byzantine city. Because of this win, the Ottomans had a strategic base from which they could launch more attacks into Byzantine territory. It also gave Orhan the chance to start building a more centralized and well-organized state, complete with governmental systems that would help the country grow in the future. It was also during Orhan's rule that the Ottomans started to spread into Europe. They took over the important fortress of Gallipoli in 1354, which is on the European side of the Dardanelles Strait. The Ottomans got their first base in Europe with this victory. Over the next few decades, they would keep pushing deeper into the Balkans. How Murad I led his army in the Battle of Kosovo. Murad I, Orhan's son and king from 1362 to 1389, led the next big phase of Ottoman growth. He was a great military leader, and he carried on the strategy of expansion that his predecessors had started in both Anatolia and the Balkans. During his rule, the Ottoman Empire grew a lot. They took over important towns like Adrianople, now Edirne, which became the new Ottoman capital in Europe. In 1389, the Ottoman forces beat a group of Serbian and other Balkan Christian troops in the Battle of Kosovo. This was one of Murad's most important victories. The battle killed Murad, but the Ottomans won and became the most powerful country in the Balkans. They also gained more territory in southeastern Europe, one of the most important and symbolic events in Ottoman and Balkan history. The Battle of Kosovo is still remembered as a major moment in the memories of people in the area. Important military and government organizations that would define the Ottoman state were also set up during Murad's rule. The most important thing he did was start the Janissary Corps, an elite infantry group, made up of Christian boys who were taken from lands they had taken over and converted to Islam. It was the Janissaries who made the empire's armies one of the strongest and played a key part in its growth. The Battle of Bayezid I with Timur. After Murad died, his son Bayezid I, ruled 1389 to 1402, took over as king. Bayezid was famous for being a great general. He continued to grow the empire, especially in the Balkans, where he fought against Hungary, Bulgaria, and other Christian countries. He wanted to make a kingdom that was unified and centralized, so he started to take more control over both Anatolia and the Balkans. While Bayezid was king, His rule was cut short when Timur, also known as Tamerlane, invaded from Central Asia. During the Battle of Ankara in 1402, the two armies fought each other. Bayezid lost badly, and the Sultan was taken. The Ottoman Empire went through a tough time called the interregnum after this loss. During this time, Bayezid's sons fought over who would lead the empire. The Ottomans suffered a big loss in the Battle of Ankara, but it did not cause them to fall. Instead, the empire got better under the rule of Mehmed, Bayezid's son, War 1413 to 1421. He was able to bring the empire back together and get things back in order. How Mehmed the Conqueror took over Constantinople. In 1453, Sultan Mehmed II, also known as Mehmed the Conqueror, took over Constantinople, which was the capital of the Byzantine Empire. This was one of the most important events in the rise of the Ottoman Empire. The Byzantine Empire ended with this event, and the Ottomans started a new era. The military strategy that Mehmed used to take over Constantinople was very well thought out. The Ottomans broke through the city's strong walls, which had been there for hundreds of years, using huge cannons made by the Hungarian engineer Urban. It took 53 days of battle, but the city finally fell. Mehmed made it the new capital of the Ottoman Empire. He changed its name to Istanbul and started to rebuild and improve it. This made it one of the most important towns in the world. Not only was the fall of Constantinople a win for show, but it also gave the Ottomans control over the most important trade routes between Europe and Asia, making them even stronger in the area. It was also the start of a time when the Ottoman Empire grew very quickly. They kept moving into Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Suleiman the Great's rule was the Ottoman Empire's golden age. Suleiman the Magnificent was king of the Ottoman Empire from 1520 to 1566. He was its most powerful leader. Suleiman was not only a great military leader, but also a smart administrator and politician who led his country through a time of great culture and economic growth. A lot of people call his rule the golden age of the Ottoman Empire. Suleiman made the kingdom the biggest it had ever been by taking over large parts of Hungary, Rhodes, and the Middle East. His military campaigns also went to North Africa, where important coastal towns like Algiers were taken over by the Ottomans. During Suleiman's rule, the Ottomans built up a strong navy in the Mediterranean, competing with places like Spain and Venice for power. Suleiman is known for both his military and legal reforms. In the Islamic world, this earned him the title the lawgiver, Kanuni. He wrote down Ottoman law, which was a mix of old Islamic law and new legal systems that made sure everyone in the state was treated fairly and that things stayed stable. His changes to the law helped the Ottoman Empire's image as a well-run and organized government. During Suleiman's rule, art, architecture, literature, and science all grew and improved. The Ottomans built beautiful mosques, palaces, and other buildings. Many of these buildings still stand today as reminders of how great the empire was. Ottoman culture was a lively mix of Turkish, Persian, Arab, and Byzantine styles. The empire was a place where people learned new things and came up with new ideas. What caused the Ottoman Empire to grow? There were several important things that led to the rise of the Ottoman Empire. Together, they helped it grow from a small principality to a world power. Military strength. The Ottomans were successful on the battlefield because their military was well-trained and organized, especially their janissaries. They were among the first people to use dynamite, which gave them a big edge over their enemies. Visionary leadership. From Osman I to Suleiman the Magnificent, the first Ottoman sultans were skilled leaders who knew how to run both the troops and the government. They were able to change with the times, make friends, and keep things stable inside the group. Strategic location. The Ottoman Empire controlled important trade routes and had power over both Europe and Asia because it was situated at the intersection of these two countries. The empire's economic and political power were helped by its locational edge. Reforms to the administration. The Ottomans created a centralized and effective way to run their government, which gave them power over their huge lands. They brought in a lot of different cultures and peoples to their kingdom, so that they could run a state with people of many different religions and ethnicities. Cultural tolerance. The Ottomans were known for being tolerant of the different racial and religious groups that lived in their kingdom. While non-Muslims were subject to certain restrictions, they were usually allowed to practice their religion and maintain their own legal systems. The rise of the Ottoman Empire was a complex and multifaceted process that spanned several centuries and involved a mix of military conquest, visionary leadership, and strategic diplomacy. The Ottoman Empire started out as a small principality in Anatolia. It grew into one of the most powerful powers in history, changing the politics and culture of Europe, the Middle East, and other places. As it grew, the Ottoman Empire was not only a military powerhouse, but also a place where people learned, traded, and lived. Its rise is still an interesting part of the history of nations, and its effects can still be seen today. Enjoying the journey through history? Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you'd never miss out on more fascinating stories like this one.